The road to the Final Four stops here. The Jayhawks are going back to the Bayou. Here now live in New Orleans are J.B. Bowersfeld and Matt Blanchett. This 13 Sports Special is brought to you by Figs Imports.
We are back to the Bayou. He is Matt Blanchett. I am J.B. Bowersfeld. Hey everybody, thank you so much for joining us. Over the next hour, we're going to be looking at the Jayhawks in the Final Four, breaking down the bracket. We'll also look at the opponent, Ohio State, and we'll also look at the other matchup, Kentucky versus Louisville, an intriguing matchup as well. But Matt, Bourbon Street, Final Four, French Quarter, everything's intriguing right about now.
It's a big deal in the Superdome, and certainly the first thing you notice when you walk in there is just the size of the arena. Last week at the Edward Jones Dome, they cut it in half. So Kansas has played in a dome before, but nothing like this. It's just, there's a lot going on, there's a lot of sight lines, and think of a football field, how long that is. The basketball court's this big, so the sight lines are a little different. So certainly a lot to adjust to for the Jayhawks. Yeah,
and there's a lot to adjust to this time of the year when so many eyes, national media, local media, folks from all over the country are looking at you, and the guys say it can be a bit daunting.
It's a bit overwhelming. You know, you get here and you, like you said, it's the band and, you know, people handing out beads. You know, it's all exciting, man, to be here. You know, you got to cherish this moment, but at the same time, you can't lose focus.
I mean, we couldn't, like, walk 2 or 3 feet without having to stop, take a picture or anything like that. But, I mean, overall, it was fun. I mean, it was a fun experience, especially for guys who's never been in New Orleans and been on Bourbon Street. So
getting here yesterday is what kind of opened my eyes. So, yo, this is really the Final Four, and it's like, you know, out of all the college teams left, or all the college teams that play, you know, it's only 4 left, and we're one of them.
You know, we're just trying to live it up and have fun with everything. You know, today's been kind of hectic already so far, just, you know, with all the media stuff, and but we're definitely living it up and having fun with it.
And the Jayhawks having fun on the practice floor today. Today, Matt, was open practice. KU took the floor last, as Louisville, as well as Kentucky and Ohio State all took the floor inside the Superdome before them. But there is some news of the day to talk about. Thomas Robinson was a Player of the Year candidate, but as we take a look at KU in practice today, T-Rob was edged out by another guy who's here at the Final Four.
Yeah, Anthony Davis, the freshman from Kentucky, becomes the first freshman to win the AP Player of the Year award since Kevin Durant. When he was with Texas, of course, we remember him quite well. So Anthony Davis, the big news, he's the Player of the Year. T-Rob, not too phased. He's got Jared Sullinger's vote. Sullinger said that he thought Robinson should be the Player of the Year today. But in any case, that's the big news. Nothing on the injury front. A lot of good news for Kansas, of course. That's the worst thing that came out of camp today.
And the good news for the Jayhawks, this team is a lot of fun to be around because they have so much fun together.
I think that we're closer than a lot of people could even imagine. On or off the court, I think that probably the closest team in America. Can't go nowhere without each other. We don't need personal space. We're just comfortable with each other. I feel like these are my brothers. They know everything about me. I know everything about them. So at the end of the day, there's no skeletons in the closet. No one's hiding nothing from anyone.
If you ain't know what coaches around me in practice, that's when I make all my shots.
We were just taking pictures right now, doing a little green screen thing, and they told us that our team, it seemed like we like each other more than the other team that they just did. So I think it just shows, you know, just us being around each other all the time.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Jayhawks of the University of Kansas.
I've had more fun coaching this team than any team I've had, for sure, going back to my Tulsa days. I could not have enjoyed this group more, and the biggest reason is because I just know they care so much.
In exactly 1 week, this team will never be together again. We will never be together again how we were. We won't be in that locker room no more. We won't be getting ready to go on the road or get on a plane. It won't happen again. This is our last time to see our potential, to see our ceiling. And if you ask some people, we've already hit it. But I think we can go through that.
Ohio State's a team that also looks like they like one another. Of course, any team that makes it this far does. They practiced today with Jared Sullinger. Of course, the last time they played Kansas, they did not have Jared Sullinger, which resulted in a KU win 78-67. They shot the lights out in that game, almost 60%.
Well, it's easy to shoot 60% when you're shooting the ball right next to the rim. Thomas Robinson and Jeff Withey had a pretty good game that day, as did Kevin Young off the bench. hit 2 of the 3 3-pointers that he's hit all season long, but things are going to be a little bit different this time around with big Jared Sullinger in the middle.
You know, it was our first loss of the season. You know, I think more in terms of how that game maybe prepared us for what we had to deal with going through the rigors of a Big Ten season. You know, playing without Jared, it obviously made us a better basketball team at that time. I know they're playing at a higher level.
I just knew as soon as we got down there, because if I'd have stepped on the court, I think they would have attacked me the whole game, and I would just be sitting out there like a dead duck because I couldn't turn my head or turn my hips to just open up and run. I would have just hurt the basketball team, period.
Nothing major has changed, just players are hot. Different players are hot at this point in the season. And you know, I think they're a lot more comfortable in their system. But the big things are still the same. You know, they have a great duo in Tyshawn Taylor and Thomas Robinson, and they have a lot of great players around them that you cannot sleep on.
And let's take a look at the Final Four as it breaks down. That's why we're all here after all. Louisville versus Kentucky, the big hyped game. Both those teams not too far away from each other in the same state. They tip off at 5:09 Central Time, and then KU and Ohio State will play the late game, probably a little closer to 8 than 7:49.
And assuming the fans of the team that loses that game don't burn the entire city down, Kansas will then take on Ohio State, as you mentioned, approximately 7:49. And of course, the winner of each of those games advances to Monday's championship game, 8 o'clock on CBS.
Well, Chris Fisher took a look at how happy some of these teams can be when they have to do all of this other stuff that surrounds the Final Four.
Over 100,000 people are expected to flock to the Big Easy for the Final Four, which makes this event a big deal. At least it's a big deal to the fans, that is. Seeing the players walk in and out of the events one after another without even a smile on their face baffles the you-know-what out of me. There must be some rule out there that keeps you from grinning in the NCAA. There has to be something. But that's okay, because everyone knows they're jumping up and down inside like a sophomore girl who was just asked to the dance by the senior quarterback. We just know it. I was almost 7 feet tall with a 2% body fat ratio and playing for a college team that's one of the most elite in the nation. You couldn't wipe the grin off my face. These guys are intense, stone cold. Can't break them. Now everyone else at the New Orleans Convention Center on Thursday was grinning ear to ear, even though some of the kids couldn't hit the broadside of a barn with whatever they were doing. See? She's still smiling. After what seemed like hours of following our boys from KU around, I finally caught this, and then another, and another. Apparently someone just needed to break the ice. Needless to say, we think we'll see these boys smiling a lot more if they come and beat Ohio State Saturday night at the Superdome. But until then, our search for happy campers in New Orleans rolled on.
Everywhere you go, there's something basketball related, good Cajun food, and music. And that is no exception to where we are at here. We're at the New Orleans Convention Center. You guys are all ready to go for something, aren't you?
Storyville Stumpers, we're ready to go.
What is that? You're the Storyville Stumpers? Is that what I heard?
That's right.
Yeah, and tell me, what do you play, and what's your name?
I'm a snare drum, Kerry
You're a
Brown.
snare drummer, huh? And come here, Mr. Banjo. What's your name?
I'm Bruce. I'm the banjo player.
You're the banjo. Do you know the KU fight song by chance?
Nope.
Now, what else do you know on the banjo?
I don't know very much.
How about the theme song?
Just a prop.
It's just a prop. How about the theme song from Deliverance?
Yeah, he knows that. Come on,
Yeah?
play it.
Y'all know this?
Yeah, he knows.
All I can do is hear Ned Beatty right now. And thank you very much. That's very. And it's not just a prop. Yeah. And what's your name, sir?
Richard Fleming.
And you obviously play the trumpet.
No.
I didn't think so. Didn't look like
I'm
it.
just holding it for him.
You wouldn't happen to know when the Saints go marching in, would you?
No, I don't.
You don't. You don't. What else do you not know?
Most of them.
Yeah.
Well,
So it's
you
just.
want me to play the Saints? We go marching in.
What's your favorite song? You know any Michael Bolton?
Sure.
Well, he actually didn't know any Michael Bolton. Apparently this trumpeter was just trying to impress the ladies or somebody nearby. Speaking of impressive, check out these moves. I did a little football agility course that caught the attention of everybody in the room. Or not. As you can tell, I never was really selected first in gym class. It was more towards the end of the line. And I predict that this child basketball prodigy that I'm competing against here has a bright basketball future ahead.
Go. He beat me. Okay, come on. All right, ready one more time. I'll get him this time. Ready? Go. Still made it.
From the New Orleans Convention Center, Chris Fisher, 13 News.
From the video, it looks like Chris Fisher's here. I haven't seen him this week, but I mean, he's here.
Yeah, I haven't seen his face either, but we will see the faces of the Jayhawks and their opponents when we come back to the Bayou.
Welcome back to the Bayou. He's JB Bowersfeld. I'm Matt Blanchette. Big week for the Kansas assistant coaches. Barry Hinson back in the game as a head coach. He heads to Southern Illinois. Danny Manning gets his first head coaching position as he's going to Tulsa.
Yes, and both of those guys actually with the Jayhawks this week. They will not leave the team until the season is over. So hopefully it's not a distraction for the Jayhawks.
Getting that job, him and Coach Hinson, more than well deserved of getting a head coaching job. I'm just proud of him.
You hope that your assistants have an opportunity to benefit from your team's success, and we've been fortunate. We had two guys get jobs yesterday, and I don't know how often that happens. And the big deal for me was and I told those respective schools, hey, I'm fine with this, but let's do it now. I don't want the rumors and everybody being interviewed and all that stuff and have to lie and say, you haven't taken a job. Hey, let's get it out of the way now.
I'm so excited for him. Obviously, he deserves it. It's sad to see him go, but I still have a couple more days with him, and I'm gonna try, milking as much knowledge out of him as I can. He's been a great teacher and mentor to me.
His whole thing with me was, it's not how fast you go, as long as the moves work. So I think patience was the thing with him.
And yesterday, also the news coming out that Brett Ballard, the Baker head coach and former Jayhawk, will join Manning down at Tulsa.
We do have two other teams here, Louisville and Kentucky, so we're going to talk about them a little bit. First, the Kentucky Wildcats, the #1 overall seed. This is a team with Anthony Davis, the player of the year in the nation. They also have a lot of other good players. John Calipari, quick to point out always that Davis, for most of the year, was the 5th leading shot taker on this team. So obviously, they're pretty deep, but what really makes them dangerous is how unselfish the Wildcats play.
Anthony Davis went from 6'3" to 6'9" in a year. You have a guard-skilled, nimble player in a big man's body.
They didn't get overexcited about making it this far, and that just shows how mature they are as freshmen, and for the guys that haven't been here, how mature they are by just staying focused and knowing that we still got a long ways to go.
I love my team. This is a great team. We accomplished many goals. Still have one goal unaccomplished, and that's to win a national title.
We all kind of cover for each other, and we all kind of make each other look good. When he was named Player of the Year in one of the awards, he thanked his team. He said, guys, they just named me Player of the Year, whatever award it was. And he said, I want to thank all of you because this never happens if it's not for all of you. Can you imagine? And then I said to him, I looked at the team and I said, guys, has he helped you all get better? And they're like, he's helped me get better. That's the kind of team this has been.
Let's compare Anthony Davis and Thomas Robinson. T-Rob, so good he can walk around with his shirt off. Nobody's going to say anything. Davis, so good he can rock the Burt unibrow. The guys are just about the same when you look at their stats. Point-wise, Davis is just about 3 below. Buddy shoots 63% from the field, 12% better than Thomas. They're both in the double digits in the rebounding category, but check out the defense. Anthony Davis blocking 4.5 shots per game. That's why he's the AP Player of the Year. Robinson, no slouch himself, a unanimous first-team All-American.
We're going to talk about free throws now. Yes, free throws. If you had to guess who led the Jayhawks from the charity stripe, probably say Connor T, and he's a shooter. Well, you'd be right. He's 83%. But if you had to guess who is the second best free throw shooter, not many would pick the 7-footer, Jeff Withey, but he is.
Smooth 7-footer, man.
One.
He's a good free throw shooter. He's a good shooter, you know, and all it took was confidence with Jeff, you know, to believe that he could do it. And, you know, he's finally coming around, and I'm glad it's now.
I've always been a pretty good free throw shooter. You know, since my freshman year of high school, it's a ton of repetition. You know, before practice, I'll shoot free throws. After practice, I'll shoot free throws, and you know, I know it's free points.
He is our best free throw shooter. You know, he was shooting 87 or 86 the vast majority of the season, and of late he hadn't shot it well, as well. But you know, it's big guys have a tendency to get fouled more in guards, and when they can make people pay at the free throw line, it's not like a turnover. So often, you know, it's such a demoralizing deal. You know, you work your butt off and you miss 3 front ends in a row, and you feel like those are turnovers. And Jeff's one of those guys that you know, every time he goes to the line, you know, we think we're going to get 2 out of it.
Every time I step up to the line, you know, you're not going to get an easier look at some points, and so that's how I kind of look at it. But you know, it's kind of just been something that's been with me since I can remember.
Withy's so good at free throws, he shoots the team's technical fouls. Still, he says, no one's really surprised by his skill, except for
guys like you in the media, I guess. But you know, guys out on the court, not really.
Yeah, I wasn't doubting him by any means, but I did ask him the question. Jeff Withy, who knows more about him than his own mother, who actually moved with him to Kansas and is now a teacher at Farley Elementary. 13 News' Susie Gilbert has that story.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Mrs. Withy usually has her mind on math, but lately she spends her days worrying.
All week worrying just if he got hurt walking to class or what, you know, it's just constant, like, just all, I'm kind of like this, I feel,
One day she was here when he was about to play a game, and she kept on saying while we were doing a quiz, I hope KU wins, I hope KU wins.
See, Mrs. Withy loves all her kids, but one in particular stands just a little taller than the rest.
It stops to a 76.
Mrs. Withy gave birth to Jeff Withy, KU's 7-foot star center and the Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year. Mrs. Withy says Jeffrey was always big. He started playing basketball on a 3rd grade team when he was in kindergarten.
The coach had to call a timeout to go out there and tie his shoes for him. When we went to Disneyland, he couldn't go into Goofy's house because he was too big. Yeah, I'll never forget that.
Between assignments, Farley Elementary School 3rd graders have tuned in to basketball games, rooting for their math teacher and her son.
He's really good at rebounding, and I think on a game that they said that he was a 95% free throw shooter.
If you'd watched him in high school, you saw glimpses of it. We knew. It's just wonderful that he's getting the recognition, and I think he is the X factor.
He might be, but I never got to watch basketball games in elementary school, so pretty cool teacher.
Hey man, you weren't born in Kansas, you didn't grow up in our elementary school system. That's how we do it in the state of Kansas. When we return back to the Bayou, I'll speak with Jeff Goodman as we break down the matchup.
Welcome back live to New Orleans outside the Superdome. Kansas taking on Ohio State tomorrow, and those two teams, JB, actually remarkably similar.
Yes, and they even played earlier this season. That matchup was won by Kansas, but as we have mentioned all week long, no Jared Sullinger in that matchup. Let's take a look at some of these specifics. KU and Ohio State almost the same on the record, just 1 game difference in the loss column. The Buckeyes led by Jared Sullinger, Aaron Kraft, William Buford, and Deshaun Thomas, of course. KU led by Jeff Withy, Thomas Robinson, Elijah Johnson, and Tyshawn Taylor. Bill Self coached the Hawks. Thad Matta, his contemporary for OSU. Their road to the Final Fours looked like this. The Hawks defeating Detroit before sneaking past Purdue, NC State, and then blowing out UNC late in the ball game. As for OSU, it was Loyola, Gonzaga, Cincinnati, and Syracuse.
Jeff Goodman is a college basketball writer for CBSSports.com. He travels the country all year long covering college basketball. My colleague JB Got to speak with him today about the Final Four and a couple other big notes of local interest.
Inside the Superdome now, I'm joined by Jeff Goodman. You can read him on CBSSports.com, and you can follow him on Twitter, Goodman CBS. First off, thanks so much for joining me.
No problem. Great to be here, and just got to get the games going now, you know?
Absolutely. And with the games, there's so much attention on Louisville and Kentucky. Do you think Kansas and Ohio State maybe are kind of flying under the radar with that second game?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the country, I think, is really, you know, everybody wants to see what happens. Patino Calipari, the in-state rivalry. It's kind of funny because the late game is going to be the better one. I mean, Ohio State, Kansas, you'll get probably a 50-50 split in terms of who thinks is going to win that game, where I think everybody kind of assumes that Kentucky's going to run Louisville off the court. They're the most talented team in the country. I love the intrigue of this Ohio State-Kansas matchup because I think it could go either way.
And adding to that intrigue, Jared Sullinger, who didn't play the first time around, back and 100% healthy in this contest. How do you think that's going to change the way this ball game's played from the first time around?
No, a huge difference. Obviously, you know, with Sullinger, he's one of the top 3 big men in the country. He's a guy that, too, right now, I think he can really stretch the defense a little bit. He'll make guys like Thomas Robinson and Jeff Withey have to come out and play on the perimeter, and that's going to be tough for them. I think that's the key for Ohio State is Deshaun Thomas and Sullinger playing away from the basket, getting Withey and Robinson away from the rim.
Yeah, we saw that Kansas had trouble with that when Robbie Hummel stepped away when Thomas Robinson was guarding him. Switching gears right now, the Kansas State job open after Frank Martin went to South Carolina. Your ears to the ground on that better than most. What's the latest on that?
You know, I think certainly we'll hear Tim Jankovich's name pop up a little bit, a guy who played there, Steve Henson. Those are 2 names that have come up. I don't know. It's interesting because I don't know who John Curry's going to go after. It's still early in the process. I think if you're John Curry, you take it slow. You got to get the right guy here. I mean, Frank Martin, look at what he built there. I mean, 4 NCAA tournaments in 5 years, did a phenomenal job. I don't know who's going to be able to replace him and be able to sustain that.
And finally, one thought on this game. To win their Final Four contest against Ohio State, the University of Kansas needs to do what?
Well, I think they need their bench to come through. Guys like Justin Wesley, Connor T, and some of those support guys, even Kevin Young, they're going to have to play because it'll be interesting to see how this game is called. I think that's going to be the biggest really issue of this game is who stays on the floor longer, Sullinger and Thomas, or Thomas Robinson and Jeff Withey. That could be the key to this game and who wins.
All right, we will see. That's why they play those games. The Final Four tipping off on WIBW Saturday evening. Once again, Jeff Goodman. You can read him on CBSSports.com.
Fantastic stuff there from JB and Jeff. Stay with us. We'll be right back live from New Orleans. And welcome back with JB Bowersfeld. I'm Matt Blanchett. We are in New Orleans, the Crescent City. It's a loose city. A lot of people free with themselves and their bodies, so to speak. And the Kansas basketball team seems to be pretty free and loose this week, too.
Yeah, they looked really good at practice today. They had a shoot around, and they actually finished things up about 20 minutes early. But there were plenty of KU fans making the trip down here to the Bayou. And this Jayhawk team has been known to be loose. They kind of take on the personality of their head coach, Bill Self. He's just kind of a regular guy. You know, I think that's why people like him so much. But this team says, hey, we're here. Why don't we just go ahead and win the whole darn thing?
I think sometimes maybe the more you try to control something, the less you actually do. I think you just have to kind of let it ride and just go play and you know, try to the things you try to control aren't the things between the lines, it's the things outside the lines.
You just gotta embrace the moment, man. Like, you know, it's only at the most I got 5 days left in my team, you know, so I want to take advantage of everything. So I mean, just go with the moment, man. That's all.
This week it's been a little bit tougher, I guess, just for the fact that we have so much going on. But at the same time, maybe it makes it easier because you realize that you're actually in the Final Four and just soak it all in.
You know, why not enjoy it, man? For a few of us, it's going to be our last time even able to be in this situation, you know. So I think you got to enjoy it.
How about the Jayhawks' opponents, Ohio State? This is a team, also a 2 seed, much like Kansas. And Matt, This is a team that also has an All-American in their backcourt.
Yeah, absolutely. It's easy to look at the matchup underneath and you say Thomas Robinson about 6'9", power forward. Jared Sullinger about the same size, weighs a little bit more, power forward. Certainly a great matchup. T-Rob goes 18 points, 12 rebounds. Sullinger 18 and 9. But it's actually going to be Jeff Withey who's going to get a lot of the defensive assignment on Sullinger, but still an interesting matchup nonetheless.
He's a great player, so if you don't come prepared, you know, he could present a lot of problems for you. So, you know, just gonna make sure my mind right, and you know, I'm gonna be prepared to face him. So we're good.
Thomas Robinson, he's fast, he's strong. He never gives up on plays. Loves the rebound. He's always in attack mode. I mean, Thomas Robinson is a great basketball player. Like I said, he's player of the year in my eyes, without a doubt.
He's an All-American. He's a really good player. You know, he can get to the free throw line, and you know, he's obviously a big body, big, strong guy, and so just keeping him out of the paint, I think, is the most important thing. You know, giving him different looks. Me and Thomas will be on him, and you know, just not letting him get easy points. I feel like a lot of times he just backs guys down and, you know, gets really easy points. And so everything we do, we want to make him work and, you know, just make him uncomfortable.
I'm sure the Jayhawks wouldn't mind if that game is ugly, just so long as they win. That is the goal. And hey, that's been the goal the entire tournament so far. KU not exactly winning pretty, but winning nonetheless. For more on that, Kent O'Kelly takes us back through the 2012 tournament for the Jayhawks so far.
The Jayhawks were rewarded for their stellar season with a 2 seed in the Midwest region and were pitted against the 15th-seeded Titans of Detroit in the round of 64 in Omaha. Player of the Year candidate Thomas Robinson put the Hawks on his back with his NCAA-leading 24th double-double of the season as KU won 65-50.
We knew that any and everything they could possibly do, they would do. And they did it, you know, from a backwards dunk to running through passes to just being fired up the whole time, not feeling like they were behind. We knew we were going to get their best punch.
Up next, the 10th-seeded Boilermakers of Purdue, and they came out of the gate swinging. Forward Robbie Hummel hit from everywhere in the gym and put Purdue on top early. The Hawks clawed back into the game, sparked by Elijah Johnson's play, and when the final buzzer sounded, KU was up 63-60.
If you're going to be scared, you might as well not be on the floor. Coach had me on the floor because he had confidence in me. So how can he have confidence in me and I don't have confidence in myself?
The North Carolina State Wolfpack awaited Kansas in the Sweet 16 in St. Louis. The Pack weren't shy in the first half and took a 1-point lead at recess, but the Hawks responded in the second with a 12-2 run and a monstrous performance by Jeff Withey on the defensive end. Elijah Johnson provided the icing on the cake. Marching on to the Elite Eight, only one team stood between the Jayhawks and a trip to New Orleans, number 1 seeded North Carolina. The Tar Heels and Hawks traded heavy blows in the first half, but KU tightened up the defense and held UNC scoreless for the last 3 minutes and 58 seconds while scoring 12 themselves in that stretch. The Hawks advanced to the Final Four with an 80-67 win.
I am so thrilled for our school and our kids because it's always more fun to do something when nobody really thinks you can do it.
You know, I've always been a firm believer that, you know, numbers and stats don't lie, man. You know, I'm in the Final Four, and a lot of people didn't think that I would be with this team. This team wouldn't be here, you know, and we came, like I said, we came a long, long way, man, from the beginning of the season.
All right, thank you very much for that look back, Kent. We've heard from Kansas, Kentucky, and Ohio State. We'll hear from Rick Pitino's Louisville Cardinal when Back to the Bayou returns. Welcome back to the Bayou. He's Matt Blanchett. I'm JB Bowersfeld. And Matt, we've heard from the Buckeyes, we've heard from the Jayhawks, we've heard from the Wildcats. How about the other team, the Cardinals? They're the lowest seed in this tournament. And I don't think a whole lot of folks are giving them a real fighting chance against the #1 team in the nation, Kentucky.
No, they're probably not. Louisville practiced today earlier, as did the other 3 teams. But any team with Rick Pitino as its head coach certainly deserves to be in a conversation for a national championship. And get this, Pitino now, it's been around for a little while, been to the NBA, but he's taken a team to the Final Four in 4 different decades. Of course, he's done it before with Kentucky and Providence, which is something a little close to home to myself. Dad's an alum there. but certainly Pitino been doing it for a long time.
Yes, and Pitino has a reputation as, let's just say, being a bit callous.
I learned that my freshman year. He's going to tear you down. You're going to break down. You're going to hit that wall, and you got to be, mentally tough to play for him.
Really, you don't have to motivate your team when you're 2 games away from a championship game. The motivation's not to win. You had to motivate in the first game, the second game, the third game, and then the motivation's really out the window. It's more about preparing your team for what you're about to face.
He's trying to help me, and he's not trying to get on me and just bring me down. And it's difficult to do because you see this, Hall of Fame coach just yelling at you. You're like, well, what am I doing wrong? So once you understand that he's trying to take the message, it helps your development so much more.
Of course, Rick Pitino used to coach at Kentucky, took him to the Final Four. These two teams not quite as evenly matched up as the other side of the Final Four. Kentucky, 78 points per game, impressive on the defensive end too. On the way to the Final Four, Louisville knocked off Davidson, New Mexico, Michigan State, and Florida. For Kentucky, it was Western Kentucky, Iowa State, Indiana, and Baylor. Matt.
Back to Kansas now for a second. What started out as a fun little family video at home turned into one that has blown up on YouTube. 30,000 hits and going up. And 13's Melissa Bruner caught up with a little guy with a big voice.
You're invisible! It should come as no surprise 5-year-old Nick Sprecher is hamming it up for our cameras. Hamming it up for Mom made him a bit of a star this week.
A junior from Washington, D.C., number 0, Thomas Robinson.
The first time we took him to a game at Allen Fieldhouse, he heard the starting lineups. They make such a production of it, and it's so much fun, and he just caught on and started asking about it.
So young Nick honed his skills. First, he gained the knowledge. Who's your favorite player?
Travis.
Why do you like Travis?
Because he's the best defenser.
Who's the best three-point shooter?
Tyshawn Taylor and Elijah Johnson.
Who's the tallest player on the team?
Jeff Withy.
Then he found his style.
I had to say them loud.
Why do you have to say them loud?
Because that's how the fans will cheer loud.
And one night, Mom picked up a video camera to capture the act for family and friends. He gave us a live performance.
A guard, a junior from Las Vegas, Nevada, number 15, Elijah Johnson.
A brother posted the video on Facebook, and it made its way to YouTube, where Thomas Robinson himself saw it.
Yeah, and he tweeted it.
What did you think about that?
That was awesome.
Yeah, little kid, he's funny. He's funny. Oh, yeah, he's hilarious.
T-Rob's tweet sent Nick from a few hundred to now tens of thousands of views in a few days. Do you know how many people 25,000 people is?
And that's a lot of people, way more than 100.
Someday, someone might be introducing Nick in their starting lineup. He'll play for Kansas, of course.
I'm only playing for good teams, no bad teams.
If not, well, we found him a gig.
A news anchor from Florida, Rolf Hill.
That was good.
Oh my God, if I had an arena, that kid would have a job, I'll tell you what.
I think we should just stop the show right now because we're not going to be able to top that. But if we can, it's going to be in the next block when Matt Blanchett talks one-on-one with Clark Kellogg. Welcome back to the Bayou. Bill Self, the Kansas coach, was getting a bit of a reputation 4 or 5 years ago for crashing out of the NCAA tournament to some lesser seeds. But then that magical 2008 season happened when the Hawks won the national title. Kencho Kelly takes us back.
While the Kansas Jayhawks are busy preparing for their Final Four game against Ohio State on Saturday, one can't help but look back on the last time KU made the Final Four in 2008 and their date with the Memphis Tigers.
You know, we were down 9 with 2-something to go, and coach just said stay positive. That's all we can do is just keep fighting and keep fighting, and that's ultimately what we did, was just never give up. And when Rio hit the shot, we're just like, it's gonna be ours. There's no way we're gonna let this slip through our hands. It's in overtime. The game may be tied, but when we made that first bucket, we're just like, it's gonna be ours.
Did you think the shot was going in?
Yeah, I thought it was going in when I left my hands. I mean, it felt pretty good when I released it.
And that's one thing that we did this weekend. We had guys, when things weren't going well, just somehow willed themselves to make a play, which, provide a big spark for everybody else.
Bill Self has led 2 Kansas teams to the promised land of college hoops. But which team would win if they played each other?
I'm not comparing us to the 08 team at all. I wouldn't want to play them. Not no team for the grown men.
I mean, I would say it'd be hard to go against 08 just because of all the talent they had. But this team doesn't give up, so I mean, I'd like to see what that would be like.
We like proving people wrong. Everybody from top to bottom on this team likes proving people wrong, and that's the best feeling in the world to me.
Oh, the 08 Final Four team would be favored. There's no question about that. But I'm not sure the 12 Final Four team would buy into that at all.
Kansas fans, players, and coaches alike have fond memories of the 08 run and hope to have the same from 2012.
All right, thank you very much, Kent. Let's shift gears as we go back inside the Superdome. Our Matt Blanchett is with a very special guest. He'll be calling the game with Jim Nantz. He's Clark Kellogg.
Clark, I mean, first of all, this is so much going on. You're used to it, but I mean, just talk about how immense the Final Four really is.
Well, it seems to get bigger every year, Matt. It is a huge, huge deal, and it's exciting for everybody. For us as broadcasters, for the host city, for the players, coaches, fans. I mean, it's just a big-time event. But at the end of the day, it's a 94 by 50-foot rectangle, 2 rings and 1 ball and 10 players, and ultimately we get to that. The other stuff is for the fans and people outside of the lines to enjoy. The business at hand is for the teams to try to bring their best performance to the court.
And you have a lot of business too. I mean, people turn on the TV and they get to hear your voice, but talk about how much goes on behind the scenes and how much work you guys have to do to get a good broadcast on game day.
You know what? We really try to approach it the same way we do regular season games. We really do. I mean, there's a little more programming around it, but those of us calling the actual game, Jim, myself, Steve Kerr, Tracy Wolfson, our producer and director team, Bob Deacon's and Bob Fishman, we basically approach it the same way. It's a doubleheader. A lot more casual eyes will be on it, but at the end of the day, we want to try to have all of our information stored and ready to go, and then talk about what we see unfolding on the court. So at some point, you have to let the preparation end, and I'm almost at that point now. I mean, I've got a few more notes I want to take. I want to read a few more things, but I want to leave room for the game to dictate how I respond. So I'm looking forward to it.
And then last question, I mean, you've got 4 blue blood programs here. Certainly shapes up to be an epic Final Four.
I agree. Hopefully it plays out on the court the way it looks when you talk about these matchups on paper. Louisville, Kentucky, enough said. Ohio State, Kansas, almost enough said. Those are terrific basketball programs. So my hope is that the kids are able to play at a really high level and we get compelling, exciting, fun basketball games.
All right, thanks very much. That's Clark Kellogg once again. He'll have the call on Saturday.
Awesome stuff, Matt. Thank you very much, Clark, for your time. Don't forget you can join us on our website, wibw.com/Jayhawks. That's where we have all of the latest updates from here in New Orleans. You've got pictures, you've got video as well. We'll be right back to the Bayou after this break. Welcome back to the Bayou. Matt Blanchett, JB Bowersfeld, and we have one more member of our cracked staff to introduce to you, Matt. He's kind of been around. We haven't seen a whole lot of him, but he's been around the whole time.
Dylan Schoonover of the Artist Spotlight
Indeed.
fame put together a little something about the behind the scenes that goes into all of this, I guess starring JB and myself. And fair warning, we haven't seen this yet, so it could either be extremely flattering or perhaps embarrassing.
Welcome, I'm Dylan Schoonover, and we are sitting in the breakout media area where the media comes and talks to the players. This is what you don't ever see. This is what Matt and JB always do. We're going to take a look at what Matt and JB do with all the other media and how they get exclusive access to the players that no one else has during this Final Four weekend. It may look a bit chaotic with over 100 people crammed into the Bill Self press conference.
Coach JB Bowersfeld, WIBW.
JB has to work hard to get his question answered from Bill, and then he must turn it around in time so this story can make it on the air.
He is our best free throw shooter. He was shooting 87 or 86 the vast majority of the season.
The editing. Matt walks us through what he must do during the editing time of the Final Four.
A lot of press conferences, a lot of interviews, a lot of shooting, a lot of editing, a lot of editing. Hopefully at the end of the day, a pretty good product that people will appreciate.
If you're in an interview where there's 13 people that want to talk to Bill Self at the same time, you got to kind of jockey for your position a little bit, box the other guy out. You want the spot in front of the coach, or you want to get the shot of somebody cutting down the net. And absolutely, I think it's competitive.
One media member offered his advice on JB's appearance.
Well, my time with JB goes back a little bit longer, and I dare I say he's got some of the best hair in Topeka now, but don't tell him. Both those guys grind it. Those guys know what they're doing, and obviously Blanchett, good friend of mine now, so we try to help each other out as much as we can.
Well, the road ends here, but really the work starts here for Matt and JB. If you take a look around, you see just hundreds and hundreds of media people credentialized to do work during this Final Four game time. It's unbelievable how much goes into it, how much preparation takes place, and certainly as you've seen with the interviews from the games to the live footage, it looks nice and clean on tape, but it really takes an immense amount of work, an immense amount of pressure on these guys' shoulders to be able to produce, and without them it's really not ever going to take place. So we're really proud to be able to show you what goes on back here in the back alleys of the Superdome, and we hope that you guys enjoy the Final Four through Matt and JB's eyes.
What we didn't show you was behind the scenes of how JB picked out his wardrobe this morning. Clearly not thinking. He's got the Buckeye red and the Buckeye silver here, so we know where his head's at.
Whatever. I think I brought 9 ties to New Orleans, and I had to pick this one out today. Obviously was not thinking when I woke up. Let's start thinking about this ball game, though. Tomorrow night, Ohio State versus Kansas. Obviously, first off, you got to talk about Robinson versus Sullinger, and obviously Withey and Deshaun Thomas down low. Talk to me about that matchup in the paint, Matt.
It's going to be one of the definite keys to this game. Jared Sullinger's a game changer. He really is, and he's a wide body. He takes up a lot of space. Jeff Withey takes up space with his length, but Sullinger does it with his width, and he can really bang in there. So they're going to have to find ways to make him uncomfortable and not let him collect the basketball where he wants it.
I think another intriguing matchup is going to be at the point guard spot. It's going to be obviously Tyshawn Taylor against Aaron Craft, and Craft is a great defender, crafty if you will, and we know sometimes that bad Tyshawn can come out and he'll throw the ball all over the gym. One quick thought, Matt, does the first time when they played in December even matter this time around?
I think it doesn't matter at all. It's the Final Four, 2 teams ready to play. Let's tip it.
All right, absolutely. That's going to do it for us tonight. Thank you so much for joining us in Back to the Bayou. For Kent O'Kelly, for Dylan Schoonover, for Melissa Bruner, as well as Chris Fisher, I'm JB Bowersfeld. We'll see you guys at tip time tomorrow.